Hey guys, so welcome to the new space. It is a touch echoey in here. My mic seems to be handling it pretty well, so hopefully it will also do that with flute while I still work on getting the acoustics right in here. It's an old house that has very high heat ceilings, so, echoes. But I am basically all moved in, the Escher is up, and it's time to start getting back into things. So today I wanted to talk about something that I'm sure a lot of you have dealt with, and I'm sure I've talked about before in some other video in passing, but I wanted to specifically talk about it this time, and that is practicing when you don't have specific things to practice, like you don't have a goal in mind. And that's something that I've been dealing with a lot lately because, COVID, and I'm sure a lot of you have had that as well as personally with all my surgeries and everything that's been happening with me medically, I wasn't comfortable committing to things because I didn't know if I was going to be able to commit to them. So far so good on that front, just so you guys know, but it was something that I was concerned about, and so I haven't really taken on any big projects lately. I also haven't taken on any of my own big projects because the ones that I really want to do take some time and some planning, and rather than do a bunch of little small ones that I'm not as passionate about, I really want to take the time to create some new things. So that means that I'm not practicing any rep or any materials or really working towards any goals because I don't have any material ones right now. I know a lot of people constantly work on the next project and the next project and the next project because that's how they motivate themselves, and it's definitely true of me. It's one of the reasons the 365 started in the first place is I wasn't practicing. But I think it's also a good thing to be able to do in that you have to be able to self-motivate to an extent, because there will be times when you don't have a major performance coming up or something big that you can work towards, but having that ability to continue to practice and find things to work on is super helpful. And I wouldn't say important, because I also don't want to say that you have to be practicing all the time and taking breaks and feeling burnt out isn't acceptable, because you all know that I do think those are legitimate, valid feelings, and if that's what you're feeling, then you need to treat that properly. But if you're feeling motivated to play, you just don't really have something to work on, I think there's a lot of things you can do to create a way to practice efficiently and practice effectively. One of the big things, obviously, is technique. I've been going through a lot of the technical etudes that I have and a lot of the scale books and scale exercises that I have, because sometimes going back to basics is super helpful. Particularly with me right now, because I'm still building up stamina and building up technique because of, jaw surgery. It's been really helpful to go back to the basics and really things that are in my fingers and that I know really well and that I can really focus on sound and articulation. And if I'm not working on those things, trying to find new technical exercises that can really push my fingers is super helpful. I've been really enjoying scales, much to probably my neighbor's chagrin, because they've dealt with me for 2 weeks playing scales. But, going back to the basics for a little bit and doing etudes and technique can be super helpful. And while it's not the most fun thing in the world, it does really feel at the end of it like you did something, you really did practice. And I know, in theory, we should all be doing technique every day, but the reality is, who actually does that? Not all of us are going to do technique every day. I know personally I don't. Whether or not that's good for me, we can have another discussion. But this time right now, where I don't have other things to practice and I don't have to spend an hour learning a new piece every day, it's really nice to really build up my fundamentals again. Another thing, obviously, that I've talked about 1,000 times is improv. Really exploring my instrument, getting better at controlling things, and really kind of trying to find new sounds and new techniques or ways to apply techniques, so that way when I go back to performing and when I go back to especially live improv, my bank of sounds is bigger and more exciting, and it means that I can respond to people in different ways than I had in the past. It was a lot of I haven't improvised in public in like 2 years now. So what cool things can I do in the next time, like in improv now? Like, what cool things can I bring to the table in a group setting once I'm able to play with other people? That's an exciting thing, and it's a technical exercise, but for me, improv is really fun. It's enjoyable, it's just easy, and it's something that I look forward to doing. So it's easier to get myself to play flute when I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just like improv for 15 minutes and like record myself and see what it sounds like, and then like work on that and see if there's some sounds that I can kind of like really sink into. Dana Jessen, who's an incredible contemporary bassoonist, talked about this when I was at Splice in 2018, and was talking specifically about like exploring your instrument and really like figuring out what sounds it can make and which ones you're very good at and which ones you can control, and then also getting better at the ones that you're not as good at and not as good at controlling. So you really have a mastery of your instrument, not just in the technical sense, in the traditional technical sense. So I guess technically this is like contemporary technique, but to me it's just fun and it really feels natural. So while I know a lot of you guys might not be super into improv, there's similar ways you can do that without really exploring like the super contemporary, super avant-garde stuff that personally I love. You don't have to explore sounds, you can explore tonal centers, you can explore techniques in terms of like intervals or, I don't know, articulation. Like, you can do things within the more traditional boxes of technique and still explore, as I said. And the last thing is very much like going through old repertoire and really actually working on it again. Personally, I learned a lot of repertoire very early. It was very advanced at a very early age, and some of the stuff that I learned I wasn't very good at when I learned it. So going back and really kind of working up some of the difficult stuff that I always struggle with is kind of nice. Like, to be perfectly honest, I've actually played some Mozart in the last couple weeks, which anyone who knows me knows that that's super out of character for me, but it just seemed like a good time to go back and do that. I'm starting fresh, basically. I'm not working towards anything, so it's not like I'm taking time away from the things that I really need to do. And being a well-rounded player is important to me. Yes, I am very focused on one thing, as you guys know, but to me it is also very important to be able to do everything so that I don't have to turn down gigs because, oh, I'm sorry, I don't really know how to do that, or any reason really. Yes, there's music that I like more than others, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to learn the stuff I don't like very much. That's part of being a musician, is also learning the styles that you're not as good at or not as into or not as motivated to play. So yeah, I don't know. I think these are really basic things, and I think I've talked about this a lot actually, and I think my burnout video is very similar to this one. But there's so many things that are possible once you start thinking about practicing as not goal oriented necessarily, and just kind of like, hey, I want to like do something. I want to play my instrument. I have 30 minutes today. What can I do in 30 minutes? Rather than like, okay, I only have 30 minutes and I have to learn this piece and this piece and this piece and I have this thing in a week and whatever. So yes, I'm really excited to start gigging again and start like actually having things to work on. But in the meantime, it's been really nice to just play. And play with a purpose. Obviously, I'm not just messing around. I'm messing around a little bit. But doing technique and doing things that actually do serve a purpose for my playing, but also aren't my day-to-day. So yeah. As I said, this place is going to change a little bit. Hopefully the audio will get a little bit better as I get more acoustic material in here. But if you like this video, give it a like. If you're new here, subscribe, and I will see you guys very soon, hopefully next week.